And now the fun begins. Let's do some television hookups. We have our plan that we're going to follow. First, we're going to study the backs of all of our components, look at what wires we're going to use, and then hook them all up. Let's start with the newer television. You'll find newer television hookups much simpler. For one thing, there are plenty of inputs, and they're also generally well labeled. We're going to be hooking this television up to both an Xbox and a Wii here. So the first thing we do is we'll take our Xbox and see what kind of cable comes with that. It happens to be an HDMI cable, so once we've plugged it into a power source, we're running our HDMI cable from the Xbox right into the HDMI hookup on the television. So far, so good. Next, we have this game system here. Again, we're plugging one of these into our power source. The other plug in this case has an RCA cable, the white, yellow, and orange type. I have everything labeled. This is going from the Wii to the television. And then I'm just going to hook them up right over here. Well, that was simple. It gets a little more complicated if you're hooking up to an older television. Older televisions don't have all those nice inputs. In fact, if your television is old enough, it has no inputs. We're going to be hooking up this TV to both a DVD player and a game system. If you look at the inputs on the television, you'll notice that there's only one set, only a yellow and a white. Well, fortunately, our RCA cables, it really doesn't matter if you use the orange cable. That would help with the stereo effect, but we can hook up just the yellow and the white. What we could do is plug in our DVD player, and then when we want to play our game, we can unplug the DVD player and plug in the game, but we have a better solution. And the solution is a converter box. There are lots of different converter boxes. This particular one has an output to our television, and then there are spots for 4 different hookups. So we could support 4 different components. So let's do this. First, we're going to take our television and go into the inputs that we do have, the white and the yellow RCA hookups. And I'm going to plug in a white and a yellow right here into our output box. Now, one at a time, I'll take our little game system first. Our game system comes with white and yellow plugs, which I'll use input 3. And finally, for the DVD player, I'm going to plug into the, I can use all 3 now, the white, the yellow, and the orange, and run these into our converter box as well. This way, we can simply choose by pressing the button which system we want to use at the time. Now that we've got everything plugged in, we're going to turn it on and see what happens. Let's go to our newer television set here. I'm going to turn on the TV and our 2 game systems. We were talking about telling the television which inputs it's following. You'll notice it's on the Xbox right now. If I choose the input button on the remote control, I have these options. This one would probably be hooked up to our cable box. We also have a VGA, which we would use to hook up a computer. And our AV input is going to be our system here, our Wii system. So in this way, we can toggle between these 2 game systems just by pressing the input button. And if you also had hooked up cable TV, you can toggle between all 3. That's the input button. On your remote control, it might also be called a source button. Now on this side, we'll turn our television on, and our DVD player and our game system. On this side, instead of the input button, we're actually going to toggle using our converter box. Once we tell the TV that we're going through the converter box, and here it is on auxiliary, we can press the button. If we press this button, we're into our game system. If we press this button, we're going to be into our DVD player. This type of converter box will cover up to 4 different units. I've seen them that cover anywhere between 3 and 6 units depending what you need, so you don't have to throw away that old TV set. So let's review what we did. First of all, we looked at the back of the components to see what kind of wires we were going to need. If you think it might require a trip to the store, you might even want to take a picture of the back of each component. Finally, you're taking the wires from each component and plugging them in to your television. Remember to label everything. It will make it much easier if one item breaks and you need to unplug just one item. After you've plugged everything in from your component to your television, the next step would be to tell the television by pressing the input button what unit you are using. And you'll see here a source list of all of our different options. If you're working with an older television, you might want to consider an input box like this, a converter, that will run from your television to the converter box, and then the converter box has a multitude of inputs. In this case, once the television knew that we had an input box, by using the input button, then I could simply toggle between all of our choices. Remember again, label everything. Thanks.